Time and space are the stage on which the drama of the universe is being played. Not ultimately real, but cannot be dismissed as unreal either.
Do we ever actually die?
We don't really die. You actually were not even born. At the point of death, the dying brain becomes suddenly very active. How much free will do we have? We actually do not. If somebody holds a gun to my head and makes me do something, you cannot punish me for it because I did not act freely. If you say, no, I'm having a good time, well, you're not seeing deeply enough. There is sorrow lurking there. The good time is going to end.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aryan Arora. I'm an actor and singer from New York. And today on the podcast, once again, we have Swami Sarvapriyananda ji. He is the head minister of the Vedanta Society of New York. He has given multiple lectures on Vedanta and spirituality and has changed the lives of millions of people, including me. So for that, thank you so much, Swamiji. It's truly an honor and a privilege to have you here again on the show.
Thanks for having me back again. It's great to meet you again under the tree.
It was very, very nice. Recently, we got the chance to go on a spiritual retreat with you in Almora, which was so beautiful. The energy was amazing. And of course, the lectures you gave, Sunil Maharaj gave, so many different lectures. It was such an amazing experience, truly a blessing. So thank you for that as well. Swamiji, I wanted to start off by talking about time and space. I think it was scientist Donald Hoffman who said that time and space is doomed, and he said that with a lot of truth. Now, I wanted to ask you, in terms of Advaita Vedanta, what is time? Is time real, or is it all an illusion?
That's a difficult question. These are really deep, fundamental questions. From an Advaitic perspective, time and space it's like the stage on which the drama of the universe is being played. So it gives us the framework, the background in which the infinite can appear as this multiplicity. Swami Vivekananda said, this universe is the wreckage of the infinite on the shores of time, space, and causation. Now, the moment you say this, one notices that you are privileging some other ultimate reality above time and space. So time and space are somewhere down in the hierarchy. So there is a reality beyond time, there is a reality beyond space, which appearing through time and space are experienced as this universe of ours. There is this distance, space is there, and the flow of time seems to be there. So time and space, in a Vedantic perspective, is like the floor on which a theatrical performance is taking place. Not ultimately real, but cannot be dismissed as unreal either.
Wow. Okay, no, that's a lot to take in, but thank you. I also wanted to talk to you about death. Now, this is like probably one of the top 5 topics in philosophy. So many people, at least at one point of their lives, question the concept of death. And I wanted to ask you, especially in the context of Advaita Vedanta, that do we ever actually die? And if we do, what part of us dies?
That's actually a central question in Vedanta, in fact, in all kinds of spirituality. And I would say even to all human beings, it's a very deep question for us, because as human beings, we are acutely aware of our mortality. We can push it to the background of our thinking, but one day or the other, we are confronted when we especially see the death of a beloved person. We are somehow lifted up from our mundane, quotidian life into something higher or something deeper when we are confronted with death of somebody, especially somebody you knew closely. Or when we see death on a huge scale, on TV or in the news. So this, we are confronted with it. Whether you are spiritual or philosophical, you're not, you're just living your life, but death is always present. Now, Vedanta says, like you said, we don't really die. It's just the opposite of what we commonly hold to be the one truth of our lives. We all think that whatever there is, maybe there's God, maybe there isn't, but I know for sure I'm going to die. And Vedanta says, you're not going to die. We are that reality which is beyond time and space, which is called Atman or Brahman. which does not change, and since it does not change, the change is something that happens within time. So if there is at all something beyond time, it won't change. If it doesn't change, it won't die. In fact, it gets even weirder. Vedanta will say that you actually were not even born. It's the body which is born, it's the body which ages, and it's the body which ultimately dies. Physically, it dissolves back into nature from which it came. But you, the conscious being, you don't die. Now, there is a little bit of a wrinkle here, a little a distinction to be understood. According to Vedanta, we, as this embodied being, this sentient being, we actually have these two aspects. One is, right now when we look into ourselves, thoughts, feelings, ideas, memories, desires, just the person that I am. I mean, this body is there, but the person I am is something that I feel directly within myself. So that's called the subtle body. The thoughts, feelings, emotions, the prana, the life forces, all of it, it's a package. It's called the subtle body. And that does not die with the death of the physical body. Often, little ambiguously in English, it's sometimes called the soul. So it's an immortal soul which comes in from past lives, takes this birth, and when this body dies, it goes on to future lives. And this is it's a belief, but it's a common belief across Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, all the Indian religions, in fact. Even the Middle Eastern religions, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Islam, they also believe in the immortal soul, that there is something that survives the death of the body. So all religions, starting from the most primitive ones, they believe there is something surviving the death of the body. And there's a second aspect to it. Vedanta says even this is not your real nature. You are actually beyond the subtle body. You are this limitless existence, consciousness place. So there are these three levels of our existence. This physical body, which is going to die. And the subtle body, which is not going to die. It's going to take up future bodies and will experience birth and death of those bodies. And beyond both of these, physical body and subtle body, is the Atman, consciousness, awareness, pure consciousness, pure being. So that's our real nature, and that's immortal.
Wow. Because we are talking about death, I wanted to touch a topic of near-death experiences. And the reason I want to touch it is because, not just because it's a popular topic, but because it's allowing the public to question what death really is. When a lot of these, whether it's kids or adults, they're having near-death experiences, it's allowing families and people to consider that what really happened. What is death? I haven't told this to many people, but I had an experience in U.S. around 2-3 years ago, a few months before I met you initially. And I kind of had an asthma attack, right? And at that point, I did not know I had asthma. And it was happening for a couple of weeks. I used to go to the hospital and doctor, and I would do checkups, and they couldn't actually pinpoint it. Sometimes asthma comes out of nowhere. It's not like you're born with it. And my lungs used to just suffocate, and I used to have trouble breathing. I tried inhalers, even they weren't working. There's so many different kinds of inhalers. I was doing an audition with a friend once at home, and my lungs suffocated while I was helping him with the audition. We were reading scripts, and I just stopped breathing. And towards the beginning, I was like, oh no, there's no way I'm just going to die, because in the beginning you have a denial, right? But then a point came where I completely kind of just was turning blue or purple, and I couldn't breathe. I was trying my hardest to take every single breath left inside my body. And I went down the stairs and I went outside. I told my friend to call the ambulance, and the ambulance was on their way. But a couple minutes before the ambulance came, I collapsed. And this is what I want to talk specifically about my experience there. A lot of times you're scared of death, and even I was at that point. But for some reason, during those few moments, I felt some sort of release. And I don't know what it was, but all my memories kind of just came all at once with me. And then I saw some sort of bright light. I don't know what exactly it was, but when I woke up in the hospital, not knowing what happened, it was like 10-15 minutes later, they told me they had to, I think it was CPR or whatever, they had to do a proper procedure. And they said I was dead for probably a couple seconds. And that completely changed my life. That's when I first started talking to my mom about spirituality, the meaning of life, the purpose of life. And that's when I first started coming to Vedanta. I wanted to ask you, what happens in these near-death experiences from a Advaita Vedanta point of view? What happens when you feel like a certain, and I was talking to Sunil Maharaj as well in Almora, and he said he had a near-death experience. He actually suffers from asthma as well. And he said that he had an astral body experience where when he kind of had an asthma attack and he was in the hospital and his body was one place and he was in another place, and he was saying that. So what, in your understanding, kind of happens during these near-death experiences?
Right. I mean, it's a terribly difficult experience, but in some sense, as you would agree, it's also a valuable experience. Right? It transformed your life. And I have heard of similar experiences from a number of people. There was this conference I went to, the theme was near-death experiences.
Oh, wait.
So there were scholars who were talking about it. There were people who had actually had near-death experiences. This was in Dallas a few years ago. The Advaita Vedanta has a clear framework about this. And most of the spiritual systems of the world, they do. It's something that they know very well. So idea is this. We have a physical body, this one. This is the one which everybody can see. And this is the one which the doctor examines and tries to treat and cure. But we have a subtle body. And that's nothing esoteric or mysterious, because we all feel it. We all feel emotions, ideas. We all have a personality. And there's prana. So the subtle body is there. In Vedanta, the technical terms for that is the pranamaya, the manomaya, the vijnanamaya, and the seed state called the anandamaya. So the pranamaya would be the vital body, and then the manomaya, the mental body, the intellectual body, vijnanamaya, and their seed state or causal state when they sort of curl up into a seed in deep sleep, for example, or at the point of the physical death. So now the idea is, when the physical body can no longer support the subtle body, maybe it's too damaged or maybe it's dying, then the subtle body is supposed to physically leave the dying body. And this process is called utkramana. Utkramana means transmigration, leaving the arising out of, literally, arising out of and proceeding. Now, an interesting thing I read recently from a report from neuroscientists. One mystery it seems they are facing is that at the point of death, the dying brain actually becomes suddenly very active. You wouldn't expect that. An organ which is dying would start to deteriorate and finally give up, collapse. But they find this fMRI scans of the brain at the point of death. They show that there is sudden burst of activity, including, release of dopamine and other biochemicals in the brain, which are related to wellness. When you get a feeling of wellness, serotonin, dopamine, those are released, it seems. And this is a technical thing I don't understand, but I was just reading it. And various centers of the brain, it seems, they light up for no particular reason at all. It's like the centers related to memory, for example. You see, you said, and many people who have had near-death experiences, they say, suddenly there's an onrush of all memories of the past. Suddenly they seem to come together. Now, what I'm guessing, it's only a guess. I was very surprised and delighted to see that report, because this is a kind of confirmation, a brain-level confirmation of an event taking place in the subtle body. So what Vedanta would say is happening is, the subtle body is leaving this body. And what is happening in the brain are just the signs of that. It's, if you will, it's like a spacecraft, a rocket taking off. And, the support structures on the launch pad, they sort of fall apart and it releases the rocket. So something like that probably, I don't know. But Vedanta, the literature is full of such descriptions of what happens at the point of death, how the subtle body leaves the physical body. Now, and suppose the physical body is not quite dead and it can be revived, and so the subtle body is still linked to the physical body, then you would expect it to settle back again into the physical body. And I suspect that's what a near-death experience is.
Wow. No, that gives a lot of insight. It's something we can really think about. For sure. I also wanted to talk to you, and this is something that a lot of our internet viewers were kind of asking us on a lot of comments on our past videos. They were saying that we understand that we can achieve moksha, liberation, through knowledge. But what about karma? What about bhakti? And what about that aspect of surrendering to God? What role does that play?
Yes. Swami Vivekananda talked about the 4 yogas. It's just his classification. It's a masterly classification of various paths of spiritual practice. So any number of yogas are there. The Bhagavad Gita talks about each chapter as a yoga. So 18 chapters, 18 yogas. Now, what Swami Vivekananda did was, all these various paths, he classified them under 4 heads. And so that somehow, it's caught on now. It's popular now, the 4 yogas. So there is the path of knowledge, the Jnana Yoga, which I often talk about. But there is the path of meditation, which is Raja Yoga. The path of devotion, surrender to God, faith, devotion, surrender. And there's the path of action, of selfless engagement with the world, Karma Yoga. Now, what are the roles of these yogas? It depends on what paradigm of spiritual life you're taking up. All these paradigms are true. But for example, if you take up the Advaita Vedanta paradigm, in that case, it's Jnana Yoga which is the top. Because the paradigm is, all our problems are due to ignorance. Our real nature is already perfect. Nothing has to be done. In fact, nothing can be done. There, it's you're choicelessly Satchidananda, you are free. Only you don't know it. If you don't know it, the solution is to know it. And therefore, it follows, what Americans would call a no-brainer. It follows that Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, is the way which will lead to freedom. The path of knowledge, you practice that, you get knowledge overcomes ignorance, and your ever-free nature is revealed to you. That is freedom according to Jnana Yoga. Now you ask, what about the others? What would a Jnana Yogi, what would Shankara and his followers say about meditation, about service, about devotion? They would say they are all very, very useful. They will not give you enlightenment and freedom immediately, but one cannot have enlightenment and freedom without them. So, in another way you can put it, they are necessary, but they are not sufficient. Enlightenment comes from knowledge. If you get knowledge by whatsoever means possible, you are enlightened. However, to get this knowledge, one needs preparation. And devotion, service, meditation, all are very powerful preparatory practices according to Advaita Vedanta. But if you change your paradigm, if you go to Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, another school of Vedanta, which is a primarily devotional school, where they will say, ultimately our problem is that our karma, we cannot free ourselves from our karma without the special grace of God. God is the ultimate reality of which we are a small part. Your knowledge can only take you so far. Ultimately, one has to have devotion to that God, which is the whole of this, of all of reality. And by the grace of God, we are freed from the bondage of karma. So they privilege Bhakti Yoga above the others. And they will say knowledge is useful and meditation is useful. And especially karma, in their case, will be more ritualistic karma. Actual, what you might call puja part, the rituals which we perform in temples and shrines. So depending on your paradigm, you will see one or the other of the yogas are raised in hierarchy, but the others are always, in Sanatana Dharma, all the yogas are there. So in Sanatana Dharma, in Hinduism, generally a spiritual practitioner would be devotional, would be have some component of study of Shastras and inquiry into Shastras, would have some component of meditation and some component of action. It might be ritualistic action, might be just pujas and fire sacrifices or something like that, but action. Swami Vivekananda, what he said was, his addition to this was, any one of these can lead you to enlightenment. And he said, by any one of them, by more than one of them, one of those 4, or by all of them, be free. That is the whole of religion. Books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details.
Wow. We are talking about all these different paths to be able to reach that enlightenment state to be able to, be liberated. But how much is really in our control? Like the concept, and many people are asking this, not only in our comments, but you see this all over social media, all over the internet. People are asking the concept of free will.
That always comes up in spiritual discussions. But I'll give you a common sense answer, which our monks would always give in reply to such questions. We don't ask such questions when it comes to the matters of the world. If I really want something, I go out and buy it or I order it on Amazon or something like that. I don't sit around thinking, do I have the free will to order this or not? No. Only when it comes to spirituality, we drag our feet and say, how much free will do I have in this case? But it's a deep question, regardless. So the first answer is a practical answer. Go ahead, jump into it, start working at it. Engage yourself in service, engage yourself in devotional practices, study the scriptures, listen to lectures if you will on YouTube, whatever you do, and give it a good try. So that is, at the very least, it's a demonstration of our desire that I really want God. But now if you take it to a philosophical level and ask how much free will do we have, according to Vedanta, we actually do not. It's an interesting perspective. Swami Vivekananda said, free will is a contradiction in terms. The moment you say will is something exercised by the mind, by the person. I am exercising will. Already I am in the chain of causation. Some cause produces an effect becomes a cause, in turn produces another effect. So if I have the will, suppose I have the will to raise my hand right now, and I did it. Okay,
yes.
So I did it. You did it too.
Sim, yep.
Did we exercise our free will? It seems so. I want to raise my hand, I raised it. But that wanting to raise the hand, it's a thought. Where did that come from? It could have just been, I don't want to raise my hand. Do we have control over that thought? And if we control that thought, by controlling itself will be another thought. Where will that controlling thought come from? It's like you're standing in front of a deep well and you see bubbles coming up, but the depths from which the bubbles are coming up, we don't see it. So our thoughts are bubbling up from where we don't know. Therefore, it's all in a chain of causation. As Vivekananda said, free will is a contradiction in terms. And so, is there no freedom? Vedanta's answer is very interesting. It says, there is freedom, but no free will. Freedom as Atman, as pure consciousness, is your real nature, Atman, Brahman, you're free. That is freedom. Freedom from samsara. Freedom from limitation. Freedom to do what? Not to do. Even the idea to do something is also within limitation. When do I do something? And when I feel compelled to do something, when I want to do something, that means I'm already within the cause and effect link. It's not freedom. So freedom is only possible in the infinite, in the unlimited. Freedom is possible in the unlimited. Freedom is possible in the non-dual, where there is no second reality. This is in a deeply philosophical, metaphysical sense. Practically, however, notice all our life is predicated upon the existence of free will. You go to a shop to buy something. Obviously, the whole thing is set up on the understanding that customers have free will. Even advertisements, which aims to influence our decision. That means the advertisers are assuming that you have free will, and I'm trying to affect your free will to buy the product I want you to buy. Elections are going on in India now. All the idea of elections, vote for this or that, is predicated on the existence of free will. You are free to choose. Our entire legal system, courts and justice and all, why do you punish a person if there is no freedom? If a person has freely done something wrong, then only you say this person deserves punishment. Why do you give awards and honors and all? Is freely done something heroic and worthwhile. And therefore, if a person has been forced to do something wrong, even a judge will take that into account. Reduced freedom of action. So the liability is also less. If somebody holds a gun to my head and makes me do something, then you cannot punish me for it because I did not act freely. But courts, election system, democracy, consumer choice, all of these assume free will. And religion, what we are talking about, assumes free will. Why give advice otherwise? If a person is not free to follow the advice, why would you give advice? So, free will is practical purposes. Free will is admitted. Now you might say this is contradictory. Ultimately there is no free will, but practically there is free will. Well, yep, it's a contradiction.
But being able to get liberated in this lifetime, could that be dependent on your past karma at all?
It is dependent on our past karma because our past karma produces this life, but liberation itself is not produced by past karma because of the simple reason in Advaita Vedanta, liberation is not produced. Liberation is our very nature, mukti, moksha swarupa, the very nature of the Atman or Brahman, what we are, not the body, not even the mind. Our Atman is ever free. Now what this world, our past karma and our sadhana, all of it can produce is the knowledge which will drive away the ignorance hiding the spiritual fact of our pre-existing liberation.
Wow. Now that we're diving so much deep into Vedanta, Vedanta, I wanted to talk about, Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya, right?
Okay, another deep question.
Another deep question, yes, but rooted into a practical aspect as well. So, concluding that the only truth is that we're Brahman, everything else is false, right? But when we are on a daily basis suffering, going through pain, right? We're dealing with daily life problems. How can we remind ourselves of that ultimate truth?
Daily life problems will remind us. The only alternative is to suffer. Often, why do we come to spiritual life at all? If the world was perfect, if it can keep us engaged and happy, and then why look for anything else? But it can't. After some time, either the suffering becomes so intense or you've got whatever you wanted and you're not satisfied. Then you start looking for something more. Is there anything more after you have enjoyed everything in life, which one can reasonably desire? Then do you want to keep on repeating that endlessly? Or our human nature is to seek something higher and better always. So we seek for something higher and better. Or the reverse. Suffering becomes so intense, you really want to release from that suffering. And therefore one seeks, is there a solution to suffering? That's what made Prince Siddhartha into the Buddha. He had both of these. He was a prince. He had all the pleasures and power which one could want, as in those days, a monarch had absolute power. And that was not satisfying, but he was engaged in all of that, but it was not satisfying for him. On the other hand, he saw this old person, diseased person, and a dead person. So old age, disease, death, and these are universal. They come for everybody, and they are all full of suffering. Is there any solution to suffering? Not so much for himself, because he was having a good time, but he knew that the world around was pervaded by suffering. So whether you are enjoying or suffering, both of us ultimately drive us to this question about ultimate reality of spiritual life and the falsity of the world. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya.
Yeah, no, I believe he said that everything in this world is dukkha. It's all
Sarvam Dukkham. It's all pervaded by sorrow. Even if you say, no, I'm having a good time, well, you're not seeing deeply enough. There is sorrow lurking there. But the good time is going to end. Therefore, it is sorrow. To produce that good time, you have to work really hard, maybe earn money or use your past karma to have a pleasant time now. And that struggle is sorrow. And the good time, you get used to it. And so it's not so much fun the next day and the next day and the next day. And therefore, it diminishes. And that is sorrow. And these good times are habit forming. And there's a price to pay for that later on, and that is sorrow. So Buddha said everything here is pervaded by sorrow.
Swamiji, now that we're talking and touching a little bit of practical aspects of life and connecting that to Vedanta and spirituality, I wanted to talk about the concept of evil versus good, right? Bad versus good. And a lot of people ask this in our comments as well, where they're like, if the only truth is Brahman and everything else is false, if nothing else is real, if everything is an illusion, then how do we know that this is good and that's bad? What's the point of having a moral compass? Should we be making these decisions ourselves? Is there any kind of importance to doing a good action versus a bad action?
Yes, the bad and the good may both be relative. I won't say they are false. Let's use the word relative. They are relative. However, they are not equal and they are not unimportant. Yes, we are Brahman, but right now it doesn't seem to be so. If it seemed to be so, if it was an obvious fact, then our problems would be solved forever. But it's not an obvious fact at all. It's something that we read about, hear about. Maybe we get an inkling about it. Maybe we get some understanding about it sometimes. Then how do we make it a reality for ourselves? Or at least, even if it's a reality, how do we come to see it as a reality? How do we use it to go beyond suffering? First, at least for ourselves, if not for everybody else. And that's where good and evil come in. So from a Vedantic perspective, it is true. Both good and evil are relative. However, they are not equal. Evil takes you away from your own reality. Evil takes you away from spiritual life. And so evil produces more and more suffering. And good takes you towards spiritual realization. And here I'm talking about the good and evil in our own life. Then we'll talk about the world later. But in our own life, so it's not true that good and evil are equal. It doesn't matter. Both are illusions. Does the good act have... why should I go to the trouble of and the sacrifice of performing a good act if it has no value at all? No. It has the greatest value. It will take you, it will do you good in this life. It will do good to society and ultimately take you to liberation and freedom. So good is the basis of spiritual life. We can put it this way. Good is the foundation of God. So G-O-O-D, without goodness, spirituality is not possible. And the more mischievous and evil we are, the more we drift away from spiritual life. And the more deliberately good we try to be, the closer we are to spiritual life, closer we are to God, to enlightenment.
You did say like how deliberately we try to be good. I had a little bit of, I just want to touch that a little bit. What's the difference between truly being good and trying to be good? Because especially you see this in the US, I'm sure it must happen in India as well, but whether it's in friend groups and stuff, you have mostly everybody, they put a face where even though I'm an actor as a profession, a lot of the days everybody's an actor. Everybody puts a face. Everybody shows on the outside that they're good. They're trying to be good, whether it's even with their family or whether it's with the outside world. What's the difference? And do you believe that if someone is trying to be good just for other people to see that they're good, will that eventually ever lead them to actually being able to do good actions? Does fake it till you make it, will that ever work? Or does the intention matter?
Yes. Yes to all of that, actually. Notice that even when people are pretending to be good, somewhere in them is the idea that it's good to be good, that I want to be good. Even if it's just for getting praise from others. But the very fact that you can get praise from others for being good shows that good is valued in society. So being moral, being good is an instinctive value attached to it, to that. Now, the difference you asked was about the difference between trying to be good and to be really good. It's a very interesting distinction that you drew out, and it's very important. Trying to be good is when my intentions are right, or at least partially right. I want to tell the truth. I want to lead a disciplined life. I want to do good to others, lead a life which is helpful to others. And the trying comes in because I have also these instincts in myself which prevent me from doing so. Maybe if I tell the truth, I'm going to lose something. People might not like me so much, or I might stand to lose financially. Maybe when I try to lead a disciplined life, the pleasure instinct gets the better of me, or the laziness instinct gets the better of me. Maybe when I try to do good to others, a kind of selfishness takes hold of me. Why should I spend my hard-earned money for others without any visible return? So this is what makes it a struggle. This struggle is called trying to be good, as distinct from what you called really good. Now that's interesting, because in Vedanta what we would say is, once the samskaras are purified, then predominantly our samskaras become good samskaras. Then the trying becomes less and less. So then to be good becomes more a question of, it's effortless now. It becomes part of my character. In fact, then trying to be bad would be an effort. So there comes a time when most of the samskaras are good and the life becomes transformed. You would call such a person, you'd call that person a saint. So it's all a matter of training yourself, and the samskaras, what one person has achieved, others can too. Sri Ramakrishna used to live near the bank of the river Ganga, and he would see these little boats plying up and down the river. And he saw that the boatman, they had big oars, poles, and they would have to push against the riverbed to push the boat out into the river. And that was hard work against the current of the river. But then he noticed, once the boat is in the current of the river, the boatman would sit back, and Sri Ramakrishna gives a graphic description. The boatman sits back, holds on to the rudder, and smokes a hookah. So that means he's merrily floating along. So there is a phase of struggle, and once you are in the midstream, you can just hold on to the rudder and guide the boat along the way you want to go. The effort is much less then, which means in the initial years, you are changing your samskaras by working very hard, and once the samskaras are changed, things go more in our favor. And then others might think, how is this person doing it? I mean, I used to think, how are the senior swamis rising so early in the morning and meditating for hours? I feel so sleepy. It's habit. It's a change of samskara. You do it, you'll be like that in no time at all. It seems to take years, but afterwards when you look back, it just got transformed soon. And there's this Zen story which I like of a monk who went to learn from a Zen master, meditation.
Okay.
And the Zen master said, you have to purify your mind and so on and so forth. After some time, the student came back and said, it's hopeless. Whenever I sit, my mind is full of bad thoughts. And the master said, you have to try and do this. Here is two heaps of very polished white stones and black stones, little pebbles. And whenever an unwanted thought comes into your mind, take up a black stone and put it in this bowl. And when the thought that you're holding on to, or the attitude that you're trying to cultivate, noble thought comes into your mind, take the white stone and put it in that bowl and meditate like this. So in the initial days, the monk saw at the end of the day, the meditation, the bowl was mostly full of black stones, a few white stones here and there. But over time it changed until several months later, he was beginning to see many more white stones there and fewer black stones. So the samskaras are changing. One more point regarding this. There is a saying, Evam vritti samskara chakra avartamanam aharnisham avartamanam. The wheel of thoughts and subconscious tendencies is rotating day and night. So our thoughts bubble up from our tendencies. Our tendencies means what we have programmed ourselves in this life and past lives. So from that storehouse, it bubbles up. Our thoughts in the mind, our reactions to the world, they're all conditioned by our past lives and this life also. But those tendencies are beyond our reach because we are not able to access it. What we can access right now are our present thoughts. Whatever I feel now, whatever I can think now, at the most what I can remember, those things we can access. Now, to change the tendencies, you can't go directly down into your subconscious and change them directly. What you can do is, whatever is bubbling up in the mind, notice it dies down, it goes back to those tendencies again. If we hold on, if we let those thoughts proliferate in the mind, those existing tendencies will be strengthened. However, if you deliberately, through spiritual practice, when these thoughts are coming up and we are aware, that requires meditation and quietness. We are aware of what kind of thoughts are coming up and we deliberately replace them with positive thoughts. It could be the mantra. It could be just the opposite. A thought of anger can be replaced by a thought of peace. A thought of restlessness can be replaced by a thought of calmness and serenity, like that. If you keep deliberately doing that, and that takes effort, but whatever you replace, that one will go back into your subconscious and slowly change the storehouse of samskaras over a long period of time. It's not easy. But then we will ourselves see noble, positive, peaceful, joyous thoughts bubbling up from within. Then you are in the middle of the stream. Then it will, the boat will go merrily on its own without too much of hard work, Last point. Sri Ramakrishna also says that he notices how these boats go into the midstream and then they raise a little sail. Even now you can see on the Ganga in front of the Dakshineshwar Kali temple or Belur Mutt, So a little sail, cloth sail they raise, and it catches the wind. The wind is already there, catches the wind, and it moves much faster than you would be able to row. And you don't have to do anything, you just relax. That wind is the grace of God. What we would have been able to achieve, maybe if we really tried for months and years, that wind does it for us. But for that, we have to surrender to God. So grace of God is also necessary. Yes.
Wow, it's so beautifully put. I wanted to change the gears of the conversation a little bit. I think you mentioned before that you like to say the form of AI as Advaita intelligence.
Yeah, somebody told me, yes, in Bhopal, a gentleman said AI could stand for Advaitic intelligence. I said, oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I never thought of that.
No, yeah, I remember that. And I wanted to ask you, because it's everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, but more importantly, they're talking about consciousness. They're saying that, can artificial intelligence can ever become conscious? And I think I saw a documentary where some people in Japan, they have a totally different understanding of what consciousness is. And they say the consciousness is connected to the body, which obviously is very different from Advaita, Vedanta, and everything. But I wanted to ask you, do you believe it's at all possible for artificial intelligence to ever become conscious?
Advaitic intelligence and AI. But it's not as silly as it sounds, because there's this a weird connection. Somebody told me the person behind OpenAI, Sam Altman, somebody asked Sam Altman, tell us something that you believe in which we don't know. And he said, Atman is Brahman. Yeah, it's apparently it's on his X feed or something like that. Anyway, that's what I heard. So there is actually this connection. It seems he's very interested in Vedanta. Yeah. Now, can artificial intelligence become conscious? It's a big question, and there's many sides to it. First of all, let's just note that the companies, organizations developing and using artificial intelligence right now and in the foreseeable future have really no interest in making AI conscious. They want AI for the things it can do for them, and that it can do very well without being conscious. You are using it for data analysis. You're using it for enhancing your search engines. It doesn't need to be conscious to do all that. You're using it for writing an essay. You're using it for composing a poem. It can do it without being conscious at all. However, it's an interesting question. Can it be conscious? And the reason why we are asking this question is, it seems to imitate human intelligence so well. That's why it's called artificial intelligence, and that's very close to consciousness. That's why the curiosity arises. So I am intelligent, hopefully, and AI is intelligent. I am conscious. Is AI conscious? That question comes up in our mind. Right now, no, it isn't. How do you know? Because ask the experts, not me, just ask the experts. They will all say, yeah, we don't think that AI is conscious. And anyway, in any case, we have never programmed it for consciousness. So whatever they have done, they have not obviously programmed it for consciousness. And not only that, they would say that we don't know where to begin. If you ask us to program it for consciousness, we have no idea how to make anything conscious. Okay, from a Vedantic perspective, you said some Japanese researchers have a different idea of consciousness, which is body-related. It's not different. It's the basic idea of consciousness which we all have, whether we are consciousness studies people or just a layperson or us. We have to start a study of consciousness with the body-related consciousness, because that's where we experience consciousness first. When you talk about Vedanta and all that, most people will say, look, I understand the consciousness which is part of body and mind. I am conscious. Yes, who will deny that they are conscious? Not conscious. Who will deny that they are conscious? Everybody knows that they are conscious. But what almost all of us will say, I am conscious, and there is a mind and there is a body. Body, mind, consciousness together, this we understand. So we have to start there. Pure consciousness, they will say, this is something strange. We don't understand this. We don't even know what you're talking about. Now this empirical consciousness, or the consciousness which you find in our day-to-day activities, can AI have that? When the question is asked, can AI be conscious, they actually mean the kind of consciousness which we are using right now. You are talking, you are listening, reading, enjoying, suffering. This is consciousness. sensory consciousness, judgmental consciousness, memory level, desires and all of that. So this one, is it possible for AI to have? From a Vedantic perspective, the answer is, first answer would be no, but then there would be a considered yes, possibly in the future, in principle. Why no? Why no? Because the Vedantic perspective is that the consciousness which we have right now is the consciousness found in the subtle body. Unless you can design a subtle body, there won't be consciousness there. You can, so AI right now is that intelligence which you find in AI is not really a human intelligence. It's a good imitation of human intelligence, but the processes going on in that AI, in the computer, in the algorithms, is very different from the biological processes going on in the mind. Yeah. There may be some distant mapping, but actually the processes are quite different. Vedanta says consciousness is everywhere in the sense of Brahman. But you need a reflector, a medium which will catch that consciousness and make it transactional. Such a reflector is our subtle body, our minds. Somebody asked me a few days ago, one question I can't understand is that, I don't understand the answer to that, is that if consciousness is everywhere, then it should be there in a dead body. Then what is it that has left the dead body? Brahman is everywhere and Brahman is consciousness. It should be there in this table and chair. And if a person dies, the dead body should also have consciousness. Yes. So Brahman is everywhere and the dead body also. Brahman is there also as existence itself. After all, the dead body does exist. So the existence there is borrowed from Brahman. But the consciousness there is not evident because the subtle body has left. That's the definition of death in Vedanta. If the subtle body leaves the physical body, that's called death. In Vedanta, I think most Indian religions would put it that way. We say in Hindi, wo chale gaye. Wo chale gaye means the one has left death. Kya chala gaya? What left? It's a subtle body which has left. The subtle body catches the reflection of consciousness, and that's what we feel as this empirical consciousness. When you see the Japanese researchers are talking about consciousness related to the body, Vedanta would say, yes, they're talking about the consciousness which they are experiencing, which is the reflected consciousness which is experienced in the mind. Unless you can design such a subtle body, unless you can design such a mind, there won't be reflected consciousness, and there won't be the kind of consciousness people are interested in. AI will not become conscious. This is the answer. All this is explanation of no, why AI cannot become conscious according to Vedanta. Now I said considered, yes, in principle it is possible. Why? A person might ask, all right, wait a minute. This subtle body, what's it made of? So suppose I have to make a subtle body in order to reflect consciousness. Now what's it made of? According to Vedanta, even the subtle body is made of matter. Physical body is made of matter, subtle body is made of matter. Sukshma, subtle matter, we call it Sukshma Tanmatras. Tanmatras are Sukshma Panchabhuta. Sukshma Panchabhuta means the subtle forms of the 5 elements of earth, space, water, air and so on. That's the ancient cosmology. But the point to be taken from here is that subtle bodies are also matter. If subtle bodies are matter, if physical body is matter, then a scientist working with matter one day might be able to understand how a subtle body is made and how it functions, and might be able to make an artificial subtle body. Now, if consciousness is everywhere, that artificial subtle body should be able to reflect consciousness by your own Vedantic logic. And I have to say, yes, in principle, it might be possible sometime in the future, but it would require drastic improvements in changes in physics, for example.
Oh, wow.
Our understanding of matter has to change in that case.
Now that we talked about physics, by any chance, have you ever read the Chinese novel Three-Body Problem?
I've heard about it, and they have made a television serial about it also recently. The Chinese science fiction writer, yes.
Yeah, and not just that, but like even Matrix and Inception, there's so many movies out there and shows out there that kind of, and if you search online about it, they're like, oh, they've taken this from Vedanta. A lot of these philosophies, a lot of these technicalities, it's not like American or West kind of philosophy. It's very much towards the India, towards the East. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yes, whether consciously or unconsciously, these ideas have percolated from the East to the West, and it's not a new thing. It's been happening since the time of the Greek civilization. So some of these ideas are already there in Western philosophy, not mainstream. People don't give, they're not in fashion anymore. Idealism is out of fashion, philosophical type of idealism. So, yes, there is an influence of Vedanta, yoga, Buddhism upon popular culture. The Matrix movie, I think there's the play and the movie, The Lion King, and the idea of the cycle of life, resurrection, even the resurrection in the sense of new births, multiple lifetimes, that we are not the body. So the bodies can be interchangeable. One body can be dropped, another can be taken up. I read a science fiction novel once where they talked about the person exists in like a pen drive, and there are sockets implanted in the body. You can plug in the pen drive into that body, and that person will come alive in that body. And look, so the hardware has changed, but the person is still the same. Now I suddenly have a new body, but I'm still the same. So this is remarkably like the idea of multiple lifetimes and going from one life to another. So instead of a pen drive, what Vedanta would say that is your subtle body is like that pen drive, which carries all your impressions, your personality, your memories, and is plugged into a new body as a new baby body, and when you're reborn.
Beautifully said. Just to end this episode, I would love to end it by doing a Gosha meditation for just a couple of minutes. It truly helped me disassociate myself from the mind and body, and I really feel like it would help our viewers as well. So if you could do a short meditation together.
Yes. But remember, the dissociation is just a way of stepping back from a kind of overwhelming involvement with body, mind, and world into the witness consciousness. But that's not the end of Vedanta. Vedanta is not dissociation. Vedanta is in fact oneness. So afterwards after you realize that you're the witness consciousness, quite apart from body and mind, then you see the body and mind are not apart from you. They are just your projections. Just like in the dream, we seem to have a body and mind also. But when we wake up, we realize we were not that body and mind. But that body and mind depends upon you, the dreamer. It has no existence apart from you, right? In the dream, the person you were and everybody else was is entirely dependent upon you, the dreaming person. Similarly here. The kosha meditation, you want me to do a guided meditation? Yes. So the kosha meditation is based upon the Taittiriya Upanishad, on the second chapter, Brahmananda Valli. It's a way of enlightenment. So what it does is, it starts with the physical body. And then it goes inwards, not physically inside the body. Because physically inside the body, if you go with a probe, you will find more of the body, flesh and blood and bones. No, inwards into your experience. So we experience the body. More subtle experience is of breath. A more subtle experience is of mind, more inwards. And the more subtle experience is of the intellect, which we are using right now. And that way. So there are 5 koshas. Kosha literally means a covering, a sheath. So the paradigm is you, the reality. You seem to be covered. We seem to be covered by 5 sheaths with which we have identified ourselves. It's as if I'm identified with my shirt and my vest. I don't know that I'm not the shirt, I'm not the vest. Similarly, I am identified with the physical body, with the pranic body, with the mental body, with the intellectual body. But they are all bodies. It's not me. It's not a 3-body problem. It's a 5-body problem. So we have a physical body, a pranic body, a subtle, that is a mental body, intellectual body, and what's called a causal body. All of them are like sheets. They are covering our real nature. Apart from that, we are the witness consciousness. So we are going to do this little meditation now, which is based on the koshas, the 5-body problem, let us say. Remember, when we go through this meditation, none of it is theoretical. Just as this body is not theoretical for any of us, we all know that we have this body. So let us, when you're comfortable, you relax and sit straight, not rigid. And when you're comfortable, you close your eyes. Breathe normally. By normally I mean don't strain, don't try to increase or shorten the breath. If short breaths come, let them come. If long breaths come, let them come. Become aware of the sensations of the body, the heaviness, the pressure, discomforts if any. Whole body. And notice that this body is an object. I am aware of the body. I am the subject. I am the experiencer of the body. And the body is like an experienced object. I am aware. The body is not aware. I am aware of the body is not aware of me. Because I am the subject and the body is an object, I cannot be the body. The subject and the object are different. I am the experiencer, the body is the experienced. Because I am aware and the body is not aware of me, the sentient being, the body is not aware of itself or anything else. I am the one who is aware. Aware and not aware, sentient and insentient cannot be the same, hence I am not the body. When we look inwards, in our own experience, you breathe in and you breathe out. This breath is the tip of a system called prana. This prana too also I am not, because I am the subject and the prana is the object. I have experienced the prana is something experienced. When the breath goes in, I am aware of the ingoing breath. When the breath flows out, I am aware of the outflowing breath. I am aware of the breath is not aware of itself, or of me, or of anything else. Because of subject and object, because of sentient and insentient, aware, not aware, I am not the breath. The body is a sheath, the breath is a sheath. Annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha. Look inwards in your own experience and you find the mind. Thoughts, emotions, memories. Very subtle. And yet it is a body. It is not me. Because it's an object. Thoughts are objects also. I am aware of the thoughts. I can see the thoughts. And I am the subject. Also, thoughts are not conscious in and of themselves. I am aware of the thoughts, and it's actually because of my proximity as awareness, the thoughts seem to be conscious also. No thought knows itself or any other thought. I know all the thoughts, and I know myself. So I am awareness. Thoughts are not aware. Aware and not aware, subject and object. Hence, I am not the thoughts. I am not the mind. The mind becomes a sheath, a covering. Looking inward, similarly, I find another division of the mind. A new label is given, intellect. Specifically, the capacity I'm using now, trying to understand and process all of this. This intellect, this buddhi or intellect, this too is an object. I'm aware of it. When I understand something, I'm aware, I've understood. When we are working as kids on scientific problems or our math homework, and we struggled with it, we were aware, we did not get it, we were struggling with it. So the buddhi or the intellect is something that we are the subject and it's an object. I am not the intellect. I am aware of the intellect is not aware. Go further. Do a thought experiment where you're not aware of the world. The body is asleep, you're not aware of the body at all. No thoughts come, no memories come, no ideas come, no sensations, just blank. Even the sense of ego is gone. Nothing, just blank. That empty space, this is called the causal body. This too is an object. It is something that is experienced. Every day in our deep sleep we experience it. In anesthesia, we experience it. Therefore, it's an object. And I, the experiencing consciousness, I am the subject. Object and subject can never be the same. I am aware, and this blankness is not aware. Hence, I am not this blankness. I am not this darkness. I am the witness of the darkness. When there are thoughts, I am the witness. When there are no thoughts, I am the witness. Between two thoughts, there is a blankness. I am the witness. Hence, this causal body also I am not. It becomes the causal sheath. Then what am I? If I am not the physical body, if I am not the pranic body, if I am not the subtle mental body, if I am not the intellect body, if I am not the causal body, then what am I? All those bodies are sheaths. And I am that to which all of them are appearing and disappearing. When the physical body is experienced, I am. When the pranic body is experienced, I am. When the mental body and the intellect body are experienced, I am. And when none of this is experienced, just blankness, the causal body, I am. This I am, this presence is always there. Usually it's mixed up with the activities of the 5 bodies, the 5 sheaths. But by itself it's not an object. Its existence is understood first because of the experience of other objects, and second because it is self-luminous. It's very subtle, but it exists. That which is the witness of the 5 sheaths, I am. When you are comfortable, open your eyes. One should note 2 things. Note that all the problems are at the level of the bodies. Sickness comes in the pranic body. Old age, mutilations, deformities come in the physical body. Unhappiness comes in the mental body. Confusion and delusion comes in the intellect body. And all their seeds lie in the causal body. But none of them affect me. The I am, that consciousness does not get old. It does not get hungry or thirsty. The pranic body does get hungry or thirsty. It does not get diseased. It doesn't get COVID. It's the body and the pranic system which gets COVID. It does not get depressed. It's the mind which can get depressed. It does not also get excited. It illumines the excitement in the mind. So it does not get deluded. It's not even affected by ignorance. Ignorance affects the intellect, not me, the I am. So hence, this I am is ever trouble-free. Beyond this lies non-duality. This I am which we have traced, now we have to ask, what is its relation to the world? What is its relation to the 5 bodies? Is it truly separate from them, or are they one with it? So ultimately, Vedanta will say the 5 bodies are actually not separate from you. You are separate from them. Just like everything in a dream is not separate from you because it can't exist without you. But you are separate. You are independent of the things and the people in the dream. You exist without them. They can't exist without you. Our projections in our dream. Similarly, the 5 bodies in the external universe, they are all related as appearances in one consciousness, in that I am. And hence non-duality is established. That there is no real separate second existence apart from the I am. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Swamiji.
Thank you so much for watching this video all the way till the end. Your support means a lot to us. Do like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And do comment below who you'd like next on the show. See you soon.